Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today is May 9th, 2024. We are in person as well as virtually today at Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board at 9:30 a.m. Today's meeting is being recorded. It's better manage our meeting. If you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand to be recognized. Once recognized, please state your name. Written comments on today's agenda items should have been received by email or our website by close of business yesterday, May 8th. The chat feature has been turned off. If you have technical difficulties, please email us at askus@wsgc.wa.gov. Okay, I will call the roll. We have all the commissioners in person here. So we have Vice Chair Julia Patterson, Commissioner Sizemore, Commissioner Lawson, Ibsen. Ex officios is Senator Conway. Are you here? Not seeing him. Senator Holy. Representative Clova. And Representative Robertson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today. Okay, this morning we are starting with the proposed tribal gaming compact amendment hearing of the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians with the Honorable Chairman Eric White, Director Griffin, and our tribal liaison Julie Lease. Is Chairman White here?
Here, present. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. Thank you.
So we can go. I think we're ready to go ahead and begin. First, I'd like to express my appreciation to for the cooperative partnership that we have with the Stillaguamish Tribe. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't have my mic on. So first, I would like to express my appreciation for the cooperative partnership that we have with the Stillaguamish Tribe and the Stillaguamish Tribal Gaming Agency. And I'll just go through the process for compacts. We have 5 commissioners, and today is the last day that we will be joined by Vice Chair Patterson, since her term is due to end at the end of June. And then we will have election of officers today as well. Next slide, please. Our ex officios. By statute, are deemed voting members of the Gambling Commission for the sole purpose of voting on proposed compacts. Next slide, please. Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was established in 1988 to authorize Class 3 gaming activity on tribal land when authorized by the state and conducted in conformance with the Tribal State Compact. Next slide, please. IGRA outlines the topics that can be negotiated in gaming compacts to include the type of gaming activity, criminal and civil jurisdiction, fees for state regulation, remedies, and standards of operation. Next slide, please. Gaming provides the tribes with the means of generating revenue, and because of that, the state must negotiate in good faith a compact amendment when requested by a tribe. Next slide, please. Collectively, the tribe and the state have shared interests as outlined in tribal state compacts to protect the public by ensuring that there is no criminal involvement in gaming, that gaming is conducted fairly, and the impacts are minimized on local law enforcement and emergency services. Next slide, please. This is the gaming compact approval process, and we have now come to the point of commission hearing and vote, which is in the middle of this chart. We've had Senate hearing and House hearing thus far. Today, you, as well as the ex officios, will vote to decide whether or not to approve this compact and send it to the governor for execution, or return it to meet for further negotiation. Unless there's any questions for me, I will turn it over to Chairman White.
Good morning. Just want to say thank you to the Washington State Gambling Commission staff just for having us here this morning. We'd just like to echo our appreciation as well for working with the Washington State Gambling Commission throughout this process. I don't know if you guys can see us on camera, but we are also kind of in the middle of our board meeting. So we have our whole board here as well, including Vice Chairman Jeremy Smith, Secretary Katie Zataiva, Treasurer Gary Tatro, and Board Member Josh Wells and Board Member Stacy White, as well as casino staff, General Manager Travis O'Neill, Assistant General Manager Jeff Wheatley, and also two of our gaming commissioners, Chris Bozer and Jeff Peterson, and our TGA Director, Mitch Maurer, and then Alyssa Conley, our in-house legal, who worked on the compact, which I know your guys' staff over there. We also have some audience members from tribal members. So with that, I just kind of want to run you through a quick history of the tribe and then what we've kind of been up to and some of the things we've been doing with some of our gambling funds. So we'll go to the next slide. The tribal history of the Stillaguamish, or the English translation as we're known today, the Stillaguamish. We refers to the people who lived along the Stillaguamish River and camped along its tributaries. In 1855, we resided mostly in this northern Snohomish County, the mouth of the main stem of the Stillaguamish River, as well as the North and South Fork. And we are signers to the 1855 Treaty of the Point Elliott. We gained federal recognition on October 27, 1976, just shortly after the Bolt decision, which affirmed the recognized figure rights and made eligible for federal services. In 2014, the tribe was granted its first reservation, which encompasses 64 acres, kind of around the Angel of the Winds Casino, as well as our current admin building location. Go to the next slide. Kind of just shows our checkerboard reservation around northern Snohomish County and kind of a little bit of all of our locations that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Next slide. Tribal government, as I mentioned just a second ago, we're all here. We have a tribal council that was created in 1953 via the tribe's constitution at that time. 6 elected members providing services to assist every tribal member. Next slide. Tribal administration that I just mentioned, which sits in that reservation kind of across the way from the Angel of the Winds Casino. This is where we house several programs, including our transportation department, planning and development department. Continues on the next slide, please. As well as family resource department, cultural department, tribal enrollment department, and our police department. Next slide. We also have our tribal housing, which sits just a little bit to the east of us here, not encompassed in the reservation, but this was a housing development that was built after we raised 31 homes to build the Angel of the Winds Casino on our only pre-88 trust land. So beautiful community up there that has 6 single-family homes as well as elders housing. And in just a second, you'll see it also houses our community center and our clinic, our IHS health clinic. So, next slide. This is a newly built Stillaguamish health clinic that opened to the Stillaguamish members and their families, and other enrolled Native Americans, as well as we use it for tribal employees. It also houses a massage therapy program for tribal members. Next slide. The Quileute Healing Center consists of both our behavioral health program, which offers assistance and use disorder treatment and mental health services, and also our Island Crossing Counseling Service, which is current methadone clinic that basically sees currently about 900 patients a day. About 30% of those are tribal, so this actually helps with the outside community too, non-tribal community. So very proud of that. That opened in 2003, long before the use was kind of prevalent with methadone for substance abuse. Next slide, please. This is the community center that's back in that housing development we just talked about, that kind of 80 acres that took over for the current plot where the Angel of the Winds Casino is on. So it's located in the middle of the housing community. It houses a daycare, part of our cultural department, our youth services, and a kitchen. We also have, it's open to travel citizens, and we hold events there for funerals and summer programs, as well as the youth program. Next slide. Natural Resources Building, again, we mentioned the Bolt decision 1974, so obviously natural resources is on top of our chart, near and dear to our heart. So new building there to house all the natural resource functions. Next slide. Get into a little bit of the impact to the community. This is a 236th Street Northeast Safety Improvement. This was in partnership with Snohomish County, but essentially funded 100% by the Stillaguamish Tribe for improvement of about a 1.5 mile stretch of 236th Street that essentially comes from I-5 up to 35th Avenue where the casino sits. Next slide. A couple of our other economic ventures, River Rock Tobacco and Fuel. We have 2 stores, one at exit 210 and one at exit 208. Next slide. The reason we're all here today is the Angel of the Winds Casino Resort. We have gaming, obviously, 8 food venues currently in construction, which opens here within the next couple weeks. The RV resort, the hotel with 125 rooms, Strikers Bowling, River Runs Event Center, and all things sports. Currently employs 767 community and tribal members. That's as of March of 2024 this year. And on top of that, 667, the tribal government itself employs about 380. So altogether, just a little over 1,000 employees employed by the Stillaguamish Tribe. Next slide. Community impact. This is just a thing that we do every year, just to donate to those organizations that service kind of the local area in Snohomish County. This year we chose kind of a list of 100,000 each to A Christmas Wish, the Arlington Food Bank, Bender's One Big Give benefiting the Seattle Children's Foundation, the Cocoon House, and the Providence General Foundation. That's just a list of the big ones that we did. Obviously, we donate a lot more of that to the smaller local charities around the area. And then also on the impact side, we have the North County Regional Fire Authority, Snohomish County Sheriff, County Public Works, Arlington Police Department, and Washington State Patrol. Go to the next slide. I think that was it for us. Back to what this compact amendment says.
I believe Senator Conley has his hand up.
Senator Conway?
Are your facilities all located in Arlington? Your health clinic, are they all basically located in the Arlington area?
Correct. That's Arlington and surrounding, kind of not the city limits, but North Snohomish County, unincorporated Snohomish County, basically.
Okay, that was the only question I had. Thank you.
All right. I will have to say I was lucky enough to visit a lot of those facilities that were in those pictures, and they are beautiful. They're very well done. Julie Lease, I'm the tribal liaison for the Washington State Gambling Commission. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners and ex officios. I'm here to share the summary of the compact changes for the Stillaguamish Tribe. This is not a new provision. The tribe is asking to add electronic table games to their compact, and we have done that already with, I think, 7 other tribes. So there's one difference with this particular request, It has to do with a rollback option for problem gambling, problem gambling contributions. So with adding electronic table games in the gaming facility, the tribe is not sure if that's going to be a viable revenue generator for them. And if they put it into place and later decide that it is not operating at a profit or the money's not going back to the tribe, they would like to be able to shut down the electronic table games and roll back to their original problem gambling contribution amount. Currently, they are at 0.2%. So how this would be impacted is if they implement after July 1 of this year and roll up to 0.26, they would be able to roll back down to 0.2 if they choose to stop operating electronic table games. Are there any questions for me on that? So our next steps is public comments. I was able to, we have an email address that the public can provide comments. And I checked it this morning. There have been no public comments from that location. And after that, then we're here for the vote.
Is there any other public comments or questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Patterson.
Julie, if they discover that they would want to roll back to 2% again because there was no profit, when would the state of Washington's next opportunity be to negotiate with them to move their contribution level up to be equivalent to what the state is making? Or excuse me, state is providing.
So the Stillaguamish Tribe restated their compact in 2021. In that particular compact, their problem gambling contribution increased to 0.2% because they had the limitation appendix and all of that. So they've been operating at the 0.2% for longer than it's been a requirement in the state. If at some point we have another negotiation with the tribe, whether for whatever amendment that they request, we would be able to discuss that as part of negotiations at that time.
And it would not be tied to whatever their issue was. Whatever their issue was, it wouldn't necessarily mean that they'd have to be making a profit in order for us to ask them to go to.
So the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act does require that the tribe be the primary beneficiary of gaming revenues. So we've had that show up in Appendix X and X2. And then you'll also see it here of they need to be the primary beneficiary of gaming revenues. And if it's going the wrong way, then any of these extra contributions should not be made. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're asking about is negotiation strategy, and I'm not sure that that's part of this discussion today, but we are aware that it is important to the commission to align the contribution amount in this that's happening for our own state gaming with whatever we request from a tribe.
So we talked about this on the phone, but I guess, and this is fine, but I guess the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is in the future tying our desire to see the tribes contribute problem gambling at the same level that the state now is contributing. And that contribution level was determined based on a lot of hard work through the Problem Gambling Task Force and the conclusion of the task force that problem gambling was tremendously underfunded in the state of Washington. So I'm just concerned. I want to make sure that in the future we're not tying that request for tribes to contribute at the same level as the state to their ability to make more money. And I understand what you said before, that they can't be going in the opposite direction, but there shouldn't be a tit for tat there. It should be, in my opinion, because I'm leaving this commission, we should be asking every tribe to increase their contribution based on the fact that we now know, after we did this study, prevalence study, that problem gambling is severely underfunded. So I just want to put it out there that I hope that in the future that there is no tie to their request for something that will make them more money.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Okay,
Senator Conway.
Senator Conway?
Well, I just want to, Julie has a very important question, and it is my belief, however, that the governor has the authority to address that issue, Julia, through a separate appendix. Now, whether that's, we'll see. But remember that we have set up some of the tribal contributions through a governor negotiation process. So hopefully we can talk to the governor about your need, Julia. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Not seeing any, do we have a vote? A motion, I should say.
Madam,
Ed?
no, please.
Madam Chair, I move we forward the proposed compact amendment for the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians to the governor for review and final execution. Second.
All right, moved and seconded. I will ask Director Griffin to do a roll call vote. I think maybe I saw some other ex officios join as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Vice Chair Patterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sizemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Lawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Chair Levy,
Aye.
Senator Conway,
Both sides.
Senator Holly, Representative Clova. Aye. Representative Robertson.
Aye.
Okay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much and congratulations to the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians. Good to hear from you this morning.
We want to say thank you as well, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we will move to 2, which is the consent agenda, the March 14th meeting, April meeting minutes, April 25th meeting minutes, new licenses, House Bank card room list, and the commission meeting locations for September, which the proposal is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs in Lacey, and October, which is the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission, also in Lacey. We already approved all the other months previous.
Motion.
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda, including the approval for the meeting locations in September and October as presented by staff.
I'll second. And moved and seconded. So I guess we didn't do public comment. Let's table that for a minute. Is there any public comment? Amen. All right, we have a motion and a second for that motion. Is there any further discussion from anyone? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Next, we will go to the election of officers. Do we have a nomination for chair?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I nominate Commissioner Alicia Levy as Commission Chair for the term to begin at the conclusion of this meeting through to the election of new officers in 2025.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
I'll second Bud's motion.
Thank you. All right, so hearing no more nominations, we'll close the nomination and proceed to vote. Is there public comment from anyone before the vote?
That's brave.
I mean, I know. I'd be like, you're the worst. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion is approved. Thank you. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Make a motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I move to nominate Commissioner Sizemore as Commission Vice Chair for the term to begin at the conclusion of the May 2024 meeting through to the election of new officers in 2025.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Any comments?
Any public
Please, no.
comments?
We've been through this before.
All right, so hearing no more nominations, we'll close the nominations and proceed to vote. So it's been moved and seconded that Commissioner Sizemore is the vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, congratulations, Commissioner Sizemore.
Yes, let's.
What? Okay. And now we're briefly, because we know that this is Vice Chair Patterson's last meeting. And, so she's no longer a vice chair, but we appreciate everything she's done for the commission. Of course, she's been fantastic and a fantastic vice chair. I wanted to read a letter that was sent to Vice Chair Patterson from Governor Inslee. So it's kind of lengthy. Let's hope I have my reading skills. Dear Vice Chair Patterson, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your outstanding service to the Washington State Gambling Commission and the people of our great state between 2014 and 2024, including serving as Vice Chair of the Commission since 2016. It is a tremendous charge to serve the people of Washington, and I greatly appreciate your commitment to keeping gambling legal and honest in Washington State. Your tenure has been marked by some notable achievements, and I especially want to commend you for your advocacy for people who have problems with gambling. Your bold leadership ensured that problem gambling awareness, education, and treatment were always at the forefront. Indeed, your work was instrumental to the legislation for a statewide problem gambling prevalence study and legislative changes to address service and treatment gaps by increasing state funding for the state's problem gambling program. Further, you should be proud of your service as the chair of the Legislative Problem Gambling Task Force, responsible for assessing the need for problem gambling related services and determining whether we are meeting those needs, identifying existing gaps, and making recommendations to the state legislature. Additionally, I want to thank you for your guidance in facilitating a statewide self-exclusion program for the house bank card rooms that helped over 825 individuals who signed up since its launch in 2022. Your work over the last 10 years on behalf of the residents of Washington is very much appreciated and valued. Please accept my best wishes for continued success and fulfillment in all your future endeavors. Very truly yours, Jay Inslee.
Thank you, Governor Inslee. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanted to open this to any commissioners or ex officios that may want to make any comments to Vice Chair Patterson on her last meeting.
Yeah, so I would like to just thank Commissioner Patterson for, you gave me a very warm welcome when I first joined the commission, and I've appreciated our discussions about things, even though sometimes you and I are on different sides of the fence. I appreciate the back and forth and the opportunity to hear other perspectives on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much enjoyed working with you these past 2 years. And I wish you the best in your other endeavors that are not commission related.
Thank you. Very kind. Thank you.
And Senator Conway, I see your hand is up.
Well, I find it's a regret. I'm full of regret for losing Julia right now because Julia and I, of course, have been friends for a long time. She and I came into the legislature in 1993 together, where she served, and she and I became friends at that time. And I think, the issue of a commissioner on the gambling commission is one where you kind of sit there and be directed, or you try to take command of an issue. And it seems to me that Julia took command of the problem gambling issue at the time and was very engaged in the issue, and partly because she had that legislative background, not only serving in the legislature, but also serving in the county council. I think, the only way we can change policy is to take action, or we can sit and talk about it forever. And I think Julia did the former, not the latter. I think that the problem gambling issue has been around the commission for a long time, and we continue to have reports, but we finally got around to trying to do something about it and do something about it in a constructive manner. And I applaud her efforts there, and we will miss her. I will miss her. I think I'm hoping that she stays engaged, maybe through the advisory committee of the problem gambling in the Department of Health, or Department of, I guess, DSHS, and that she continues to be engaged, because I think the problem gambling issue is not going away. We all need to be working on it. I see constructive things happening both on the private and in the state side, as well as in the tribal gaming side. And I see the positive things happening in those fields. And I thank you, Julia, because I don't think it would have happened without your service. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Sure. So I watched the Netflix Tom Brady roast, so I think I'm ready for this, and I don't think you guys were doing it right. I believe you're still married, so we don't have that to go after you. Yes, kidding aside, I feel very fortunate to have came into the Gambling Commission at the same meeting that you did many moons ago. And while I had known you previously, we had never had the opportunity to work as closely as we have this past 10 years. And it really became abundantly clear to me pretty early on in our tenure that, you know, problem gambling was a problem that wasn't really being addressed with the right resources from the right direction, and was, you know, truly, you know, as others have stated, you know, something that was on the forefront of folks' thought processes when it came to gambling policy. And I identified it, you know, also same time kind of as you, I believe, or you may have came into this thinking about it much more than I did. But I was able very quickly in kind of my progression to say, she's got it. I don't need to expend that energy. And I'm really glad that that you chose that area of need to extend your energy, and the accomplishments are very noteworthy, as you know, the governor of the state of Washington stated. So I mean, you served as my vice chair for 6 years. I did get in trouble a couple times for handing over the gavel. You know, I got chewed out a few times, but ultimately, I very much appreciate serving with you this period of time, and the state of Washington's been very fortunate.
Thank you, Bud.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Patterson.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Can-
Yes, Mr. Edson.
If I can just have a small point of personal privilege too, just to briefly say that despite the fact that our time together was very brief, I don't have the depth of experience of some of my colleagues in terms of working with you as well as the commission. I do want to echo the sentiment that there's a pretty big pair of shoes to fill when it comes to your role, both in terms of your legislative work, setting us up for success with problem gambling, self-exclusion, and the other framework that our commission is benefiting from, but just being a good colleague, helping bring myself and our new members up to speed, and just free friendship too. So wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gosh, thanks everyone. That really touched me, and I really appreciate it. And I want to call out a few individuals. Bud, I really have appreciated my time serving with you. We've been together for 10 years. There are not many people that you work with for 10 years, and we have a different perspective on things, as all people do, but it's always been just a really enriching, meaningful experience to work with you, and I'm thankful for you. And Senator Conway, I want to thank you so much for your friendship as we work through the Problem Gambling Task Force, and your, just your guidance and your advice from a legislative perspective was incredibly helpful to me, and your friendship. So thank you for that. And to our current chair, Alicia, I want to say that I am watching you evolve into a tremendous statesperson, and I'm seeing you embrace this position of leadership with just so much aptitude. And I'm glad that I got to witness your rise here in that capacity. And I want to thank a few of the staff that have been here for a long time. Julie, thank you so much for everything. You are a tremendous asset to this organization. And Suzanne, steady, very steady, keeping us steady. Sometimes that drove me crazy. And Julie Anderson, also steady, keeping us steady. What do you want for lunch? Steady. And I just want to say thank you to Rebecca George. Yeah, Rebecca. Wow, what a great relationship. Not based on the fact that we are in agreement or that we see eye to eye, but just based on, I think, mutual respect. You've spent a lot of time with me explaining things. You've been very patient. And I just really, I personally like working with you. I like you, and I'm thankful for you. And I want to say that. So I think in the legislature, I learned that you can spend your time diffusing your attention on many, many different issues. And at the end of the day, you will potentially have nothing to show for that, unless you at some point decide that you want to drill down and go deep and into a deep study of a particular issue. And I think in my early years in the legislature, I didn't really completely understand that it's good to grab an issue that you feel in your heart and go deep with it. And when I came on the commission, I think that problem gambling was a lost topic. Don't you think so, Bud? Yeah. So I've been really thankful to be able to drill down here in my later years on a particular topic that I care deeply about. So I turned 70, and it's time to just play now. I just learned how to play pickleball, which is really great, and many, many other wonderful, fun things with family, and I'm going to miss you all. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great experience. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going to head to the director's reports. Please, Dr. Griffin.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have enjoyed working with you, and I wish you all the best moving forward. So we have quite a bit in the director's report. I'm not going to read it or reiterate it, but just point out the topics. We are working to update the problem gambling signage that is required in all licensed locations, and we are working together with Evergreen Council on Problem Gambling to update that signage. So I'm very excited about that as we kind of slow to get started, but we'll get there. Indian Gaming Association trade show we attended with Commissioner Lawson, staff attended, and so had a great opportunity to meet with quite a few vendors and learn about current trends with the equipment vendors and other topics in the gaming industry. I do want to point out a little bit more about where we're at with our modernization project, because that is a big issue for our agency, and the thing that is taking up a great deal of staff time So we are celebrating our first success in this project. We have completed our business requirements gathering process. It has been about a year. Actually, I think it's been a year since we started. We started in April of 23, and we had to turn up the heat a little bit from August to December, where staff was dedicating 16 hours a week towards that endeavor, but we have completed that. We did lose a little bit of time in our project timeline in the procurement process. The state was navigating a change in their procurement process, but we have now procured the services of a quality assurance reviewer, which is the necessary step since we are an OCIO, soon to be called WATEC oversight project. And so they will start updating our 2020 readiness assessment, which is the next formal requirement before we can move on to actually starting to contract for acquisition and implementation. But there's a lot of work to be done in the meantime. Again, wanting to make sure that we celebrate success of all of the staff work that has gone into this project thus far. So over the next few months, in the summer months, we anticipate going through this quality assurance review for a readiness assessment. That's going to take about 4 weeks, hopefully not more than that. So we'll be working a lot with that QA reviewer. In the meantime, we're scheduling demos with vendors from the state contract. So if we are able to find a product or an implementer that meets our needs from the state contract, that would prevent us from having to go out for an RFP, which would save us a great deal of time. There are a few other requirements that we need to address for OCIO before we can actually enter into a contract for acquisition and implementation. Our end goal is to hopefully have contractors on board and ready for development by September 1. So we are working diligently to meet that goal. In the meantime, we have procured a records management system, which is a necessary component. Simultaneous projects, kind of hard, but it is necessary to have a records management system because of our antiquated IT systems. And so this is going to be a component whether we wanted to or not as we upgrade into, a cloud-based server. So that project is just getting started. It's going to take about 6 to 8 months of staff time to convert our paper records, our license files, electronic records, all of those legacy IT records, et cetera, into the new RMS system. But again, it's necessary for IT modernization project. So that's just a brief update of what's happening at the agency. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Director Griffin? I see Senator Conway has your hand up, I think.
Yes, I just have a question, Dina, about the evaluation process. I sit on another committee where they actually evaluate the performance in comparing other states. In other words, this is the retirement system where we actually have an outside evaluator come in and evaluate our performance against the performance of other entities like the retirement system. I'm wondering, is that happening with the Gambling Commission, or is the person doing the evaluation internal to the state of Washington?
We selected the quality assurance reviewers from DES's state contract list. So they are not employees of Washington State.
But they are state-based.
They met all the
I think our state is unique in having so many recognized tribes as well. So I know that it's a challenge here. But I'm hoping that in this process, maybe they can kind of look at our state as it compares to our gambling commission, as it compares to the performance of other states as well. So thank you.
And maybe I might need to clarify that the quality assurance review is a readiness assessment to determine the agency's culture and readiness to embark on updating our IT systems.
Mhm.
It's not to compare our agency to other agencies. It is just, it's my understanding OCIO has found that that this is a requirement because if an agency is not, in terms of their staff, budget, time, organizational change management, leadership, if any of those components are not in a state of mind that is ready to embrace a change into a new computer system, software, whatever it may be, it makes implementation challenging. And that's where OCIO wants to know, so we can, and even the agency, right? So based on their findings, we have to give an agency response to how we're correcting any areas that they have concern in before we are allowed to move forward with hiring someone to, through acquisition and implementation of a very expensive project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Any public comments? Not seeing anything. All right, then we will go to tab 3. There's a budget update with Chrisinda Hansen, our Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning. I believe Nicole has my slide deck, so there we go. Thanks, Nicole. So good morning. For the record, Chrisinda Hansen, Chief Financial Officer for the Gambling Commission. I'm here today to present a budget update. This is the last time I was before the commission with an update was in February. Quarterly update based on how our revenue cycle. So next slide, please. So in February, when I was before you, we presented some information that our revenue was not coming in as originally projected through some public listening sessions and some discussion at that meeting. It was determined that in general, the industry's strongest quarter is the first quarter of each calendar year. And so we definitely want to affirm that that is correct. This bar chart that you see here is the gross gambling receipts reported by those organizations that are licensed with us over time. And you can see that the most recent quarter, which is on the right of the bar chart, is about $18 million more than Q4 in 2023. We are still in a space where we are gathering data so that we can understand the cycles of the industry and be able to trend and accurately predict what's coming. The fee restructure that required the quarterly reports in this way happened in 2018. It wasn't fully implemented until mid-2019. And then, of course, 2 quarters after that, COVID just kind of threw a wrench in the works. So we are just getting to the point where we can have more than, a year's worth of data to see if those trends are repeating themselves. And so far we are seeing that there is some cycles in how the gross gambling receipts behave over time. Next slide, please. So the effect of this is that when I was before you in February, our revenue variance was 1.79 million. That is, it was 1.79 million less than what we had anticipated. The first quarter performance has helped close that gap. Our variance is now about $1 million. And just as a reminder or refresher, some of that variance is because when the fee adjustment that we made went into place, that was a year ago. It was effective in June of last year. And when we were doing all the work to forecast our revenue, I was still relatively new to our requirements and what we were able to do when we adjust fees. And I had made the assumption that the fees would be fully implemented. All those changes would happen July 1, and that isn't the case because we can only adjust annual license fees. So the revenue the organizations have not been subject to the new rates until their licenses have renewed. So that is where part of that variance is coming from. But we do see that our gap is closing, so that's encouraging to see. Next slide, please. So the effect of that has been that our projected available fund balance at a fully staffed rate is now still in the positive zone at the end of the biennium. When I presented in February, this graph, the data had us crossing the zero plane in late March or early April. So the performance from quarter 1 of this year has given us a more favorable outlook. The other feedback that we received in February, both from tribal consultation, public listening sessions, and actually questions at the commission meeting itself, was the reality of looking at a projected available fund balance for fully staffed. And so we do have to budget with the assumption that we'll be fully staffed so we can make sure that we have adequate revenue to support our expenditures. However, when we're looking at fund balance, we did take the time to provide another slide. Next slide, please, Nicole. At a 10% vacancy rate. And so just to be clear, that 10% vacancy doesn't mean that we are like freezing hiring or not filling positions. Really, that represents the turnover in the agency and that vacancy that occurs between the time of someone leaving and being able to hire a replacement. That historically, for most industries, is 8 to 10% just because of the time it takes to hire. And so this represents what our available fund balance would be considering an ongoing 10% average vacancy rate. And so you can see at the end of the biennium that is a positive of almost $1.7 million. So while we do have a more favorable outlook based on the results of the Q1 2024 filings, we do still currently see a downward trend in our fund balance, just not as quickly as was forecasted when I was before you in February. You'll also notice that these slides are labeled draft, and that's because I included April revenue and estimated expenditures, but our business month for April, the books don't close until the 10th business day of May, which isn't until next week. So these are still draft numbers, but the final will be plus or minus, not significantly different than what we're seeing right now. And then the fund balance that's projected through the end of biennium does include expenditures as approved when the budget was before you last year for the biennium, as well as the governor's initial budget increased central services by $800,000. I haven't completed the work yet to know what that final actual cost is to us after the legislative session ended and the budget was approved, but it does include some of that. We will have in July before you a supplemental budget request based on expenditure changes that were not anticipated when you approved the budget last year, which may widen our gap between revenue and expenditures. That remains to be seen as I work on putting together the supplemental budget request. So, last slide, please. Are there questions?
So on slides 5 and 6, the fully staffed draft and the 10% vacancy draft, I appreciate you adding those so that we can kind of see, you know, the more likely outcome versus kind of an unrealistic, fully staffed for 12 months sort of scenario. But I want to confirm that the 0 line, essentially, that is our designated, above our designated reserves, right? So
Yes.
remind me what our reserve policy is.
So when I speak to available fund balance, it is already taking out of our fund balance the required operating balance, which OFM doesn't tell us how much we have to keep, but because our revenue is cyclical by the quarter, we have 3 months set aside of estimated expenditures. Additionally, from our fund balance, we are, before we come up with our available fund balance, we're also withholding the money for IT modernization and a couple other smaller projects.
Okay, so that's three months of expenditures
About
plus, and then whatever
yeah.
this sloping line is.
Yes, so that's important. So on the chart, when we're approaching 0, that doesn't mean 0 in our fund balance. It means 0 in reserve, in addition to all of our set asides that we know we have to have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Senator Conway has his hand up.
Senator Conway?
You're on mute, Senator.
We often are talked about the revolving gambling account. And are there dollars in that account currently? Bud has talked about a reserve. Is that the reserve? Is the revolving gambling account something else?
Yeah, we only have one account, and that is our revolving governmental account. So when we say reserve, it's just our operating, what's traditionally called the working capital balance, but we don't have a capital budget, so it's our working operational balance to cover 3 months of expenditures if something were to occur. So, but we do only have one fund in this agency that's a governmental fund.
Okay, very good. That's all I need. And so when we get a surplus in the account, that's what some of the budget writers try to get a hold of. Is that correct?
That's what they would like to get a hold of. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Ibsen has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Crescendo, sort of related to another topic on our agenda with the IT updates. What do you foresee? I mean, this is like meteorology, right? But do you foresee any long-term operating budget implications of the updated IT system, either pro or cost side?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have identified that will be a carry forward is the cost of the software itself. So prior to this modernization, we've had a homegrown system that we use that our internal staff has maintained and enhanced for us. So moving forward, we will have software licensing costs that will be ongoing. What those exact costs are remain to be seen based on the system that's selected and how that company does their licensing costs.
Will there be FTE implications, either greater or lesser?
I can't speak to that, especially not from the IT side. That's not my area of expertise.
Sure.
I know in my own unit, we're reevaluating work. There's not going to be less work. There's going to be different work, at least in my specific unit. I can't speak to the others.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from commissioners? All right, ex officios. All right, thank you, Crescendo. We are going to make one amendment to the agenda, and that is that we're breaking at about 11:30 to go into executive session to discuss current litigation. That was not included on the agenda, so we're amending that now. Now we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will come back and go into tab 4. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now in our rulemaking Administrative Procedure Act proceedings, and tab 4, a fee increase of Adam Amory. Is that right? Right. interim legal manager and rules coordinator.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners, ex officios. As Chair said, my name is Adam Amrine, interim legal manager and rules coordinator. And starting with the discussion on fees, continuing what Crescinda presented to us. As Crescinda mentioned, relying on our excess fund balance to cover increasing expenses is not sustainable. So the commission elected to open rulemaking in January to explore adjusting license fees. Following a budget presentation at the February 2024 commission meeting, commissioners expressed their concerns about reacting too quickly and wanted to see the first quarter of 2024, the data that came in there from the quarterly license fees, which was just presented by Crescinda. Earlier this week, we made a very similar presentation to both our tribal partners and the public at large, and had some productive conversations there. And we also received a letter on May 6th, earlier this week, from Jacob Hall, who is the manager of social impact and development with the Seattle Kraken. And he authored this letter on the behalf of the professional sports teams in the state, the Kraken, the Mariners, the Seahawks, and the Sounders FC. In this letter, Mr. Hall expressed the concern for increasing fees again after such a recent fee increase that occurred last time. He mentioned that electronic raffles were disproportionately impacted in last year's fee increase and expressed concern about raising the fees again in such a short time. He emphasized that the longer net effect of these increases may undercut the sustainability and enthusiasm of current electronic raffle licensees, and also expressed some skepticism about barriers to entry for new licensees. They recognized the conundrum the agency faces, but encouraged us to explore other avenues other than raising fees for a solution. With that, we'll move into our staff recommendation, which is to continue discussing how to proceed with rulemaking to address license fees, to cover the increasing cost of licensing, regulation, and enforcement based on the first quarter of 2024 quarterly license fees and fiscal year to date expenditures.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions or discussion from the commissioners? No? All right. Is there any public comments? Seeing any? Okay. And do we have a motion?
I think we need to make this.
Discussion.
Oh, just discussion. Sorry. All right. Then we will move to tab 5, which is the problem gambling signage.
Yes, thank you. Since April 2023, commissioners have been discussing problem gambling signage and topics revolving around problem gambling. At the March 2024 meeting, commissioners filed proposed rule language for further discussion. And that rule language addressed problem gambling by requiring licensees to display problem gambling signage at all public entrances and exits to the gambling area of the business. Excuse me. Also required all advertising materials to contain a responsible gambling message. And it required all advertising, marketing, or promotional materials to include a clear opt-out message if the patron wished to unsubscribe from further advertising. We received an email on February 29th in support of the attached language, but other than that, we have not received any new comments. Staff recommends that the commission take final action on WAC 230-066-068 after holding a public hearing with an effective date of 31 days after filing with the Office of the Code Reviser.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners? Or no?
Just want to say that there's a lot of great work, staff time and work put into this rule change.
Thank you. Any public comments? Seeing any? All right. It's time. Do we have a motion?
I move to take final action on the problem gambling signage as presented by staff to be effective 31 days after filing.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next up is tab 6, which is the adjacent card rooms. There's Adam.
So staff developed clarifying language to ensure that adjacent card rooms operate as separate and distinct licensed business premises. At the January 2024 commission meeting, commissioners authorized staff to initiate rulemaking on an expedited basis for the repeal of WAC 230-06-046 once the new WAC, which is number 230-03-182, becomes effective. And commissioners also filed WAC 230-03-182 for further discussion with additional language. At the March 2024 meeting, commissioners authorized staff to refile that language, striking one of the sentences in subsection 2. Since the last meeting, we have not received any additional public comment. So staff today is recommending that the commission take final action on the rule as presented after a rules hearing with an effective date of 31 days after filing with the Office of Code Revisor.
Thank you. Is there any? Mr. Sizemore?
One quick question. Thanks for your presentation, Adam. So in essence, this essentially maintains status quo for adjacent card rooms and simply moves the rule into a different section of the WAC. Is that accurate?
That's Tina, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair Tina Griffin, for the record. So it moves it into a licensing section. There are changes to subsection 1, how it's laid out. So we can do a side-by-side comparison, but what is authorized now is a shared inside public access between. Let's see. May not be adjacent to if they share inside public access. So I guess that is the same. There can be no, they have to be fully separate and distinct licensed businesses with a solid wall with no internal access between the two premises. And each licensed business premises must operate as an independent commercial stimulant as defined in RCW. So it's written a little bit differently in section 1. I believe that at this point there can be non-public shared pathways between the two, and really to ensure moving forward that there is clear 2 distinct separate businesses, there has to be, we're asking for a solid wall to be between the 2.
For patrons and employees?
Yes.
Those that exist with those openings now.
Subsection 2, yes, does not apply to non-house banked Class F and house bank card rooms, physical locations that have any of the features listed in subsection 1 and were licensed as of July 1st. So that was the change that you made a few months ago because of the policy. We recognized that the staff language posed earlier did not take into consideration the policy decision that the commissioners made to allow those these attributes for the physical locations at that time. We addressed that issue when you we asked you to, when we brought that to your attention and refiled the 102.
And if I may follow up, so if we adopt this rule, there will be, due to this action, there will be no more adjacent card rooms with these attributes and no less due to this rule.
It will not change the physical location where card rooms are currently at that are adjacent. That has been in the previous rule exempted from no matter what the ownership is. And that is what you changed when we brought the language change before you. So those that are currently licensed and operating can operate in that capacity without any physical location changes, as long as they, even if they have changes of ownership. Moving forward, any new licensees must comply with how it is written in 03182.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? No? Any public comments? Any? Do we have a motion?
Chair, I move to take final action on the adjacent card rooms rules as presented to staff to be effective 31 days after final.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right, motion passes. Tab 7, the Polaris rules with Adam.
All right, so as you said, this will be our Polaris project. This is our project that's working to replace our current legacy IT systems in an effort to modernize our technological abilities. As we approach implementation of the new IT systems, Commission staff has identified several chapters of WAC Title 230 that will need to be updated or amended in some way. These rule changes will correspond to the new capabilities of the new IT system once it is in place, and will hopefully allow for more efficient processes for both staff, licensees, and applicants. For example, the new IT systems will allow for electronic submission of documents, electronic notification, and electronic service of documents. These rule changes will likely affect several different WAC chapters, including but not limited to the rules revolving around licensing, fees, rules for all licensees, fundraising event rules, bingo rules, and hearing rules. At this time, staff would like to recommend initiating rulemaking proceedings that would be necessary to adjust changes associated with the IT modernization project.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? No? Any public comment? Any? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve initiating rulemaking language proceedings necessary to address changes associated with the IT modernization as presented by staff.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Tab 8, line license expiration dates with Adam again.
Great.
Day for you.
So currently organizational licenses expire at the end of the quarter, depending on when their license was initially approved. Crescinda kind of touched on this in the budget, but because of the quarterly expiration of these licenses, it took about 9 months before all organization licensees begin paying the adjusted license fees. It also currently takes about 13 months from implementation of a rule change for all licensees to be subject to the adjusted gross gambling receipts rate, and 22 months to receive a full year of revenue from those adjusted rates. And we have a slide on the screen that kind of demonstrates that. This timeline makes it extremely challenging to forecast cash flow and collect adjusted fees in a timely manner. Staff is proposing that we initiate rulemaking to align all the organizational license expiration dates to June 30th. And the aim here is to hope that this will aid in revenue forecasting, as well as simplifying implementation and communication to licensees when adjusting license fees in the future. At this time, staff is recommending initiating rulemaking to align organization license expiration dates.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from commissioners? No? Any public comments? Can't really see anybody anymore. All right, not seeing any. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve initiating rulemaking language proceedings necessary to align organizational license expiration dates as presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, tab 9, minimum cash on hand. Adam?
Great. At the November 2023 commission meeting, commissioners asked staff to work with stakeholders to determine if rulemaking could address stakeholder concerns regarding the minimum cash on hand requirements for house bank card room. We have gone ahead and worked on that. At the March 2024 commission meeting, commissioners authorized initial rulemaking to amend WAC 230-15-050 and create new rules. Those new rules and amended rules are included in your packet, but the highlights of those rules are to allow specific prizes to be paid by check, to allow for changes to the formula for determining the minimum amount of cash to be required in the cage, requiring card game licensees to exchange chips for cash unless the player requests payment by check, and requiring house bank card room licensees to have sufficient funds to pay fixed base prizes. Since the March 2024 meeting, we have held a public feedback session on April 16th, where several individuals expressed their support for the changes to the minimum cash on hand requirements. And that support was largely centered around safety concerns for both staff of the card rooms and the patrons that may be carrying around a large winning prize. At this time, staff is recommending filing the attached rule language for further discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Yes.
One, so this, I really appreciate the perspective of somebody wins big prize. If they're amenable to it, the licensee can choose to write them a check within 24 hours. And I think that we ought to kind of offer that same level of choice to the player. So, or, you know, at least we can have this conversation. But for me, if somebody, you know, has multiple wins in smaller or medium-sized pots or jackpots or whatever that don't meet this threshold, and maybe they've got $10,000 all of a sudden, you know, that they're due. It seems to me that if it's their choice to have a check or a wire transfer or a ACH or whatever method of transferring that money into their checking account or giving them a check, that the player should have that, by rule, should have that option as well. So I don't know staff-wise what we would need to do here to make that modification, but it seems to me that kind of consumer protection, player protection would be good to address in this rule.
Absolutely.
Easy.
So, Tina Griffin for the record, and we have our subject matter experts that's been helping Adam out, Jess Luce, who is now Special Agent Supervisor. So I think if we take a look and just what are your thoughts, and Adam, you may want to consider this as well. If we take 230-15-050, and in the first line here, in the first sentence, say how, right now it says, however, the licensee may write a check for the balance of chips redeemed, but only at the request of a player. I think what I'm hearing you say is you're thinking that it should say, however, the licensee must write a check for the balance of chips redeemed, but only at the request of the player.
If requested.
but only if requested by the player. And then the licensee must issue the check within 24 hours.
If, or ACH or wire transfer, whatever, but,
Oh, so you want to take this into wire transfers and other sorts of
If-
electronic payment
if
methods?
the player chooses
Okay.
one of those forms of redeeming their cash rather than physical cash, I'm open to having that conversation. I don't know what the pros and cons necessarily would be of opening it up to those other methods of payment. I like the time frame. I just want to, through this, give the player the choice to receive their funds in an alternative fashion other than just cash in their pocket when they walk out.
And an alternative fund to a check as well.
Sure.
Okay, and just initially, I think one consideration that we have not had conversations about is any wire transfer fees and who would bear the costs of any fees associated with initiating a wire transfer, or any other fees associated with transferring of funds through electronic mechanism. So it sounds like we can certainly take those back. It sounds like that's going to be more expansive than what we could address with the change here today.
I mean, we could, I mean, if everybody's kind of ready to go with this right now, we can do that in a separate rule. I'm fine. I don't want to necessarily, if this is,
Well, I think it would change things. We would have to still refile the 102. Would you not agree? Because
this is at 102 right now.
yes, so we can hold it over until July and work on that. Carrie, is it okay if just,
Yeah, I can't tell, he with his hand raised or? Yeah.
In the far left corner.
Oh. Go ahead, Jess.
Hi, Jess Losi for the record, with the Regulation Enforcement Unit. So I think our rules do address checks in general, Commissioner. Besides what Director Griffin just described, we have several other rules as far as different types of jackpots, and we always give the player the ability to request a check for the full amount. We also want to make sure if the player wants to receive cash that they have that option as well, because they're using cash to buy in on tables. But I think all our rules now at least cover checks. So if a player wins any type of jackpot or is in general gameplay, like you noted, where they're winning maybe $100, $1,000 at a time, and now have built up to $10,000, like your example, these rules would give them the ability to go to the cage and potentially request a check. Outside of checks, like Director Griffin said, we haven't addressed that at this point in this rule. But I do think we're at least covering checks and giving the players that option. So just wanted to throw that out there for consideration.
I could follow up on that. So, and I guess for Tina or Jess or Adam, I mean, there may be more policy considerations in these alternatives, whether it be, and I don't know if an ACH and a check are the same thing in a practical sense. And then wire transfer, certainly a different thing. So the big thing for me is, at a minimum through this process, is I do want the licensee to have an obligation to write somebody a check. So the way I'm reading it, it says that they may write a check if the person that's being paid is asked for it, if they want a check. So, it seems to be more of a, when you win one of these types of jackpots. So I'm concerned that it doesn't address general gameplay and a player option to receive a check. So I'm open to being pointed out where it does do that. And then Again, if the ACH and wire transfer are kind of different policy discussions, I'm fine with maybe breaching that another time.
Yeah, I think with that subsection 1 that Director Griffin brought up, one of our concerns had to do with whether players did not want checks at all. And they're using cash to buy in on tables. And let's say they buy in for $10,000 in cash. And now when they go to the cage, they want to receive cash back. And there was a concern that if the card room could just always write checks and not provide the player cash, which was the method of payment they use. So that's why we put in that rider saying that if the player requested a check, the card room could do it. But maybe there's some other language we can use to kind of encompass what you're looking for as well.
Commissioner Patterson?
Based on what I'm just hearing today, what's wrong with the language in that section? Licensees must exchange chips brought to the cashier's cage by players for cash. However, the licensee, instead of the word may, put the word must, write a check for the balance of the chips redeemed, comma, and then eliminate the words but only. So it would then say at the request of the player. So that way they are required to write a check if the player requests it. They're not required to if the player doesn't request it, but only if they do. But
I mean, it seems like it accomplishes the only thing. Yeah, because that's not talking about specified types of jackpots. That's somebody coming to the cage with a handful of chips. And I mean, I guess the only other concern, I mean, are there any money laundering concerns or issues with this type of policy change?
I'm not following that.
Well, I'm just, is there, somebody shows up with a bag full of cash, goes and plays for a half hour, and they came back and now they want to check. Let's say it's under 10,000. If we don't know where the course of where their bag of cash came from.
That happens now.
Right, I know it happens now.
This isn't going to
Right.
change that in any capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, the AML requirements for the card rooms still exist, and this, in the format in which they receive their money at the cage, that's not going to impact the AML compliance requirements.
Excellent. That's a good answer. Excellent.
So I'll put forth an amendment if you guys want to go forward with this.
Well, Commissioner Ibsen had a comment.
Oh,
or
excuse me.
thanks.
Sure. Just a clarifying question. Just in general, if we're moving more in that direction of checks in lieu of cash as an option, can you just tell me how we're going to verify that there's sufficient liquidity in these establishments' bank accounts?
Yes. Jess, do you want to touch on that?
You know, our agents go into the field and we do periodic reviews of the card room's accounting records, including their bank statements, especially for larger jackpots. But this would be part of our regulatory program to verify that they're maintaining sufficient amount of cash on hand in their accounts as well, so they can cash out these players appropriately. So
The periodic audits, snapshot in time. Okay, thank you.
correct.
Thank you. And then I'll go ahead and get public comment on this discussion, and then maybe we can discuss the amendment. Is there any public comment? Yes, please come up to the podium and state your name and who you're with.
Hi, thank you. My name's Brooke Davies. On behalf of Maverick Gaming, just wanted to make a brief comment based on Commissioner Sizemore's suggestion, just to ask you all to potentially consider, I understand maybe Wire does have fees that would take more consideration, but at least consider the ACH option. It essentially is an electronic check, and I think that, you know, it would actually, there'd be no holds on it. Some people wouldn't have to make that extra trip to deposit it. So just for public safety reasons, just asking for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments on this? Let's see any hands. All right. Do you want to discuss the possible amendment or?
Madam Chair, I'd like to offer an amendment to the proposed rule. The amendment in 230-15-050 would replace in line 5 would replace the word may with must, and it would eliminate the words but only. And the effect of the amendment would be that if a player wants to be redeemed with a check, then licensees would have to do that if they ask for it. That's what I think it does. Maybe Suzanne.
I like it.
This is some of that amendment, but I believe I'm following what you're saying. Did you also strike the language? Sorry. We're passing the microphone around. Did you also strike the language regarding at the request of the player?
No.
Okay, so it's just the but only.
No, we want at the request of the player there.
I would
Yes.
agree that would be how I'm understanding your intent. So, thank you.
Place may with must
Yeah.
and
Get rid of-
strike, but only
Yes.
in that first paragraph.
All right, so you're making a motion with that amendment.
To move forward. I would second that to move forward with that amended language.
Oh,
Well, it's not.
No. We can only vote on,
we're moving forward with the amended language.
it hasn't been amended until it's been voted on. The action of amendment hasn't occurred yet.
That's what we're voting on. It's just the language, so we're voting on amended language, isn't that?
I defer to you, Madam Chair.
Defer to Susan.
We're not taking final
We're
action.
not taking final action, we're just,
Moving it forward.
We're just wordsmithing.
yeah.
Okay,
And it's gonna require a new 102.
you're right.
So
Yes, so this is prior to filing language, and so at this stage, what you're looking to do is just amend the language that's currently in front of you and vote to approve to file the CR 102 with your amended language.
And no formal action for amendments.
No, but you will need to make it clear to staff what language you are moving forward with the CR 102 language.
Can't you just let me have one amendment? No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table with the amended language of taking out may, adding must, and removing but only. So do we have a second?
I seconded it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Okay, where are we?
If I may, real fast before we move on, I just want to make sure we have the exact language read into the record. So subsection 1 is going to read, card game licensees must have sufficient cash on hand to redeem all chips issued for play. Licensees must exchange chips brought to the cashier's cage by players for cash. However, the licensee must write a check for the balance of the chips redeemed at the request of the player. Licensees must issue the check within 24 hours.
Yes.
And so a second motion, if you choose to, is still necessary to then file this language.
Okay. What do we have?
So you get your
Yes.
That was.
Here we go. Wow.
Okay, so do we have a,
Madam Chair, I move to approve the draft language for minimum cash on hand for further discussion as presented by staff and as amended.
Second.
all right, been moved and seconded to move forward the amended language. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Next up is tab 10. Firearms as a prize with Adam.
Yes, thank you. So to ensure that our rules regarding firearms as raffle prizes are in line with other state laws and how raffles are actually conducted in the states, the commissioners asked us to develop a rulemaking regarding changes to WAC 230-06-062. Commissioners approved initial rulemaking at the February 2024 meeting. And today we are presenting the language that's been developed to that aim. The language that is attached in your packet there seeks to limit the certificate to be redeemable by a licensed firearm dealer, to a Washington State dealer. It also limits the firearms that are available as prizes to only those firearms that are authorized for sale in Washington State. And this amended language would help clarify that point. Additionally, the language would prohibit persons who are not permitted to own firearms in Washington State from obtaining such a firearm via raffle prize. Instead, our rules would allow for a equal or similar value prize to be awarded instead, such as a gift card or something to that extent. So today, staff is recommending filing the attached amended rule for further language. Or, excuse me, for further discussion.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Any public comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve amended language as presented by staff for further discussion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Adam, I believe you're done for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, final agenda item. Go enjoy the sun. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have two more. Agency request legislation with Director Griffin.
Thank you, Chair. So even though we just finished the 24 legislative session, it's time to start thinking about 25 legislative sessions. So at this point, staff is just bringing some high-level topics to you to see as we start to engage in public listening sessions, as well as with our tribal partners in upcoming months, and then also to get your ideas so that we can have further discussion in June as we prepare to narrow the possibilities of agency request legislation down at the July meeting. So at this point, just high-level concepts that staff is thinking and will still continue to vet and think forward as we engage tribal partners and the public in these conversations would be a change to the Gambling Act to allow us to accept credit card fees, especially as we are potentially entering into, credit cards for payment of license fees, especially as we're entering into modernization features with our licensing and our public-facing interactive site with licensees, the My Account. So that is something that we're considering in terms of the Gambling Act. In terms of the Public Records Act, we are thinking about maybe we're examining the Public Records Act to see if changes are necessary to protect information and records that we require to possess or verify to carry out our regulatory and licensing mission. And then lastly, discrimination based on cannabis use was a statute that was enacted in 2023. And there are exemptions that exempt general authority agencies from being able to not hire based on drug tests. And we are examining whether this would be something that limited law enforcement agencies might benefit from in terms of making a change as well. We are open to your ideas today because we would like to take those to our June 3rd planned time for public listening session, and as well as meeting with our tribal partners to hear their thoughts and ideas on these topics, as well as any topics that they may have for the commission to consider. We'll bring all of that back with feedback to you for your consideration at the July meeting, at which time we will ask you to give us direction as to what topics you think would be best for us to move forward with, because that would give us then about the 60-day time period to do all the prep work for submission for final approval at the September meeting. I haven't checked to see when the packet is due to the governor's office, but it's usually around mid-September. So that's how quickly we end up to where we're at. Any thoughts or ideas that you might like staff to explore in the next few months?
Commissioner Sizemore?
So I have one addition that I would like to propose, and then of the three issues that staff's brought forward, I'm not asking that we not, listen and kind of begin going down the path of investigating, but the 49, 44, 240, which is discrimination based on cannabis use, and the exceptions that currently apply to general law enforcement but do not apply to limited law enforcement. I really want us as a policy board to evaluate whether we really have a problem with our employees using a legal substance, and whether that really is a big deal. I know that there are some federal policy changes are under consideration related to cannabis. We have experts, I see on the screen, certainly an expert on cannabis, and we have actually probably a few experts on screen, but the potential or the possibility of getting a super qualified law enforcement candidate that can't go work at a general law enforcement agency only for the only reason is because they smoked marijuana or took an edible 3 months ago, that really intrigues me. I'd like to steal people away. So I think there are certainly implications of, they have to be able to testify. There's a whole bunch of implications. They get firearms and cars. But I want to be thoughtful as we go forward, as this, not you, but the rest of us, as we go forward on these. So I'm open to being shut down right now, or that's going to be my perspective on that going forward. I may be very well convinced that we should seek that exception, but my gut right now is that I don't want to close the window on maybe it being an opportunity.
What federal implications?
I think the Biden administration's trying to really reduce the
classification of the
Yeah.
substance. So right now it's considered extremely harmful and they're trying to move it to a lower classification.
Yeah.
But I know there was the RCW passed recently that allows for, right, like you can still test healthcare workers and I think law enforcement. I don't know if that is mandatory though, or if that is so just something voluntary. I don't know if one of the if Representative Clover or Senator Conway know the answer to that offhand, but oh, Representative Clover, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that this is something that is being taken under consideration. There's, I think as Bud said, if you have a job classification, say for instance, like our limited law enforcement officers that maybe has a requirement that you are not currently utilizing cannabis, that's great. But I think the crux behind the law that was passed, it was a Senator Kaiser bill, basically is that you can't be penalized for legal product usage before you were under the rules of the potential employer. And once you are, well, then that's a different situation. And just like, you know, whatever their testing regimen is now, that would continue on. But it just doesn't artificially reduce that pool of candidates who would be, you know, good folks to interview and perhaps hire just because of previous legal activity. So, and I think that is definitely commendable that we take a look at. And then I have also, so it's currently a Schedule 1 drug, like Chairman Levy said. There's you know, no redeeming use or language similar to that. And the consideration now at the federal level is to bring it to Schedule 3, which means that it does have potential medical benefits. And so it's, you know, on par with like ibuprofen. And so it still would be illegal on the federal level. And I know, you know, there's some implications with firearms possession rules and things like that. But I also, and I can't remember from the very beginning of the conversation, is that something that is being considered for non-commissioned officers, like say a records person or any of the other, there's a lot of administrative personnel that work for the Gambling Commission. What's the current rule in terms of cannabis usage for them, and where does that factor in during the employment process?
Currently, only law enforcement staff are tested as, you know, as part of the long litany of requirements through the pre-hiring process. But that is the only classification that is required to pass a drug test. Well, not right now by statute. So, so currently no one is required to pass the drug test. No one is required to pass
Pre-employment.
Pre-employment
Because
as a condition of employment.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
condition.
But it's not something that we give to anybody outside of the law. And in fact, I don't even know if we're doing it now.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm a little confused, Madam Chair, because of Karen or Senator Kaiser's legislation. What else did you want to pursue? But I wasn't aware of Kaiser's legislation. What else did you want to see changed besides what that bill changed this session?
I want to be convinced that we should seek an exemption from that statute.
I see.
I'm just, I guess, signaling. I need to be sold that
Okay.
that we need that exemption.
Right.
And then I do have another topic, I guess. I don't want to take all the time, but so in the fee simplification and restructure process that we went through 5-6 years ago, one unintended consequence that seems to exist is that if someone decides to get out of the gambling business, we don't really have, I don't know, hammer or feather or whatever we need, but we don't really have a method to ensure that they are making their final quarterly reports as well as their final quarter payments if there is a payment due. So I would like to look at whether we need to, and if we can do it by rule, fine, but it probably feels like this may require statute change in order to ensure that we have jurisdiction when they're maybe past their license expiration. So yeah, just to ensure that, you know, I think most people want to have clean books at the end of their operation, but if people are just walking away and owe the gambling commission money at the end, then that affects the rest of, you know, our existing licensees by, you know, them not paying their bills, and it causes us to not have fully accurate data because we don't have their final quarter records.
And just for, as staff and has this conversation with tribal partners and public listening sessions, what are you thinking, civil penalties, or just give us jurisdiction for what actions moving forward in terms of?
I would take the staff's recommendation. I mean, it's whether it's civil penalties, failure to, you know, if somebody can't get any other license until they pay that, or whether they go to collections. I'm open to a range of solutions.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now going to go into executive session.
Do public comment before we go to executive session. So that everybody, nobody has to come back.
Not about it. I was gonna make them come back. Any public comments on it? Not seeing any, so then we will go into executive session, 11:32 a.m. for approximately 30 minutes. And then we will come back to adjourn public meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Could I ask a question here? Do we need the ex officios at the executive session?
It's up to them.
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
Okay, we're not excluded, in other words. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Room is live.
All right, we are now back from executive session at 12:03 p.m. Our agenda items are finished. If there's any public comment for anything from today, you can submit it to askus@wsgc.wa.gov prior to our next commission meeting. The next gambling commission meeting will be held here at the Liquor and Cannabis Board on July 11th and 12th, 2024. We are now adjourned at 12:03 p.m. Thank you.